So, this weekend, I saw a very highly anticipated movie about a superpowered man who is given strength from his religion and from his ancestors to save his people from an existential threat. I'm, of course, speaking of Pureflix's film, Samson.
Why did I pose in that cardboard cutout? I want to know what it'd be like to have hair again.
You thought I was going to talk about Black Panther? That movie's actually good, go see that. But no, Samson. Let's talk about that one. Oh man. Look, the last two Christian movies, really Christian movies that I saw in the theater were The Case for Christ, which was technically well made, but boring and intellectually reprehensible, and Let There Be Light, which was not technically well made, morally reprehensible, and funny most of the time and boring more of the time. This one's a hoot and a half, man. This one's funny. This is look, I couldn't be mad at this movie because they're trying, man. Pureflix wanted to make an action movie. They wanted to make a throwback to like the Steve Reeves Hercules movies or some of the sword and sandal fight movies from like the 1950s, and I'm like, "Aw, Pureflix, you want to make an action movie? You go ahead and make your action movie, okay? Yeah, you try, David A.R. White. You make a little action movie. You make it all exciting with the pew pew punching." This is not a good movie, but on the same token, it is a very enjoyable movie, where I had to bite my lip to not laugh aloud because there were other people enjoying the film on its intended non-ironic level behind me, and I didn't want to upset them because they paid for the movie and it was free for me. Oh, where do I begin with this movie? Oh, okay. So, the movie takes place around 1100 BCE, which of course they're going to say BC because this is a Christian movie about a Jewish story. And we meet Samson and his brother, Little Samson. No, I don't know what his name is. And it's funny, is Samson is like lowering his brother down, so he like enters this scene as like he's Spider-Man or something. And the opening scene has a very like Marvel feeling to it, where it's sort of like if like a not as cocky Iron Man and I don't know, like Jarvis or something, but the little brothers Jarvis are like trying to like steal this food from the Philistines, and then they're caught and they're like, "Show me your hood, it's Samson, I know him," and then there's a battle scene and alright, at least 40% of all of the dialogue in this movie is people saying the name Samson. And at least 10% of it is some iteration of the words "kill the Hebrew," or "attack the Hebrew," or "there's the Hebrew." Oh man. This movie, I think I counted 5 writing credits on it. Like, it took 5 people to write this thing. This has a paint-by-numbers screenplay that sounds like it came out of, like, if you go into, like, the children's section of Barnes & Noble and you get, like, Baby's First Bible and you flip to the story of Samson, just with PG-13 violence in it. And the visual look of before I get to this, I'm used to bad movies like this having multiple writers. This movie has 2 credited cinematographers. Yeah, this movie has 2 directors of photography. Now, I don't know why, because this is not a particularly well photographed movie. Look, there are 2 types of lighting in this movie. Exterior natural light, and interior, let's just call it, lit. Now, while most of the interiors are lit by candlelight, we're not getting any moody Stanley Kubrick, Barry Lyndon lighting, or we're not even getting like cool, moody candlelight, Red Wedding, Game of Thrones lighting. Oh no, we're just getting, it's lit, Can you film now? There's no effort to make any of this look like, hey, we're in a castle with stone walls and no electric lights, because it's 1100 BCE. So maybe we should make it, even though it needs to be visible, we should make it look like it's a little dark to the characters? No. Just like, here's your light, you good to go, director? The director's a guy named Bruce McDonald. I didn't recognize the name. I don't know if he's part of the Pureflix repertory company. The only director whose name I know off the top of my head from them is Harold Kronk, the God's Not Dead 1 and 2 guy, who apparently did not direct Part 3, which comes out next month. Anyway, so, Samson is pretty much if Hercules and Jesus combined. Now, Samson, I know in biblical literature and biblical scholars is considered to be like a pre-Jesus type thing, but he really does have a lot in common with the Hercules of Greek mythology. So obviously, whoever was writing the Old Testament was basing, they had other myths to work from. They created their own Hebrew Hercules. Hebrew Hercules, that would have been a better title for this movie, because Samson in this movie hears a bunch of voices from God, or at least he talks to God, and he doesn't really hear back in voices, he just hears back by getting Hulk smash, Samson smash. So if you just flip those around, it's Son of Sam though, who did hear voices from a dog. So I'm like, wouldn't this movie be a lot more fun if instead of Samson it was the Son of Sam hearing from God, or the little dog is like, kill the Philistines, Davy, kill them. But anyway, Samson has been prophesized because prophecies are okay in the Bible but stupid in Harry Potter, I guess. Oh, these movies always have a fucking prophecy. So, Samson has been prophesized to be the savior of the Hebrews, or at least one in a line of saviors, because apparently they need a lot of them. As long as he agrees to 3 things: that he does not drink wine, that he does not touch dead bodies, and that he does not cut his hair. Why an omnipotent super being cares about these 3 very specific things? Reasons. I would say plot, but I think they're part of from the Bible too. Actually, I'm not very familiar with the story of Samson from the Bible. It's been a while since I've read it. I should probably refer to my Bible. I know it's Legos, but it actually uses biblical quotes, and it's literally true, and they acted out with Legos. The Lego really should have made this instead of the Lego Ninjago movie. Anyway, so let's see. Samson grows up, God blesses him, he notices a Philistine girl. In the movie, this is romantic. He notices a Philistine girl, she's like a servant. They hit it off, and then the evil prince and the actor who plays him must have watched Gladiator in an episode of Game of Thrones, because his performance can best be described as Joaquin Phoenix in Gladiator meets Prince Joffrey. Yeah, it's not good. So, alright, so in the Bible, Samson notices a Philistine girl, and then he goes to his father and mother. His father is played by Rutger Hauer, whose performance can only be described as bored. Here's the thing, there's 2 very noticeable actors in this movie, or name actors. There's Rutger Hauer, and there's Billy Zane. Now, both of these actors have done really good or very enjoyable over-the-top performances. Billy Zane in Tales from the Crypt Demon Knight, Rutger Hauer in almost anything Rutger Hauer did in the 80s and 90s. Both of them in this movie are acting like either their lines of dialogue are delivered between yawns, or that when the camera's not on them and they're doing coverage of the other actor, they're scrolling through their bank's mobile app to make sure the check from David Ayer White cleared. It's weird, because, even Nicolas Cage, who is perhaps the best bug-nuts over-actor of our generation, he did the Christian Left Behind remake, and in that one, he was so bored and stiff and did not give us any of the batshit crazy Nick Cage that we love, and that would have made the movie a lot more enjoyable. What is it about great over-the-top bug-nuts actors who lose all of their energy in Christian movies? Anyway, so, in the Bible, Samson goes to his mother and father and said, "Hey, I noticed this Philistine girl, make her my wife." The mother and father reply, are there no women from among your relatives that you would go and take a wife from these uncircumcised Philistines? They don't mention circumcision in the movie at all. I'll make that out. So, no. There is a conversation kind of like this in the movie, though. Samson said, "Get her for me, she looks pleasing to me." Yeah, it's not as rapey in the movie. Samson headed to Timea, this is the Philistine woman. As he has approached the vineyards, he saw a roaring young lion coming at him. Okay. Oh man, this is a very funny scene in the movie. It doesn't happen exactly like this in the movie. He feels that God has forsaken him for some reason, so he goes out into the woods, and he's like, give me a sign or something. And then a lion is there, and it looks like maybe they filmed the actor playing Samson in one scene, and then filmed the lion in a safari zoo, like at Disney's Animal Kingdom or something, over here. And then the lion starts to Samson backs away and like steps on a twig or something, and the lion notices, and then the lion runs at him. And then we have a battle scene shot entirely in extreme close-up between Samson's face and what is a very obvious fake lion. So he's like, "Arr! Arr! Arr!" And then finally he defeats the lion. Hi, Carl. You look a little lion. Yes, who's a little lion? Yeah. So, so he defeats this lion, and then he like walks away, and then comes back the next day, and the lion's already desiccated to bone, and then he pulls like a thing of honey out of its chest. Okay. Anyway, back to the Bible. So, he tears the lion apart with his bare hands as easily as if it were a young goat. Can you tear a young goat easily in half? I've never tried. So, and then Samson doesn't tell his parents. Yeah, there's no follow-up scene where he tells anybody. And then on his way back to Mary, he takes a look at the lion's carcass. It's a swarm of bees and some honey. That happens. I mistook it for flies in the movie, but bees. Scoops out some honey. He returns. He makes the parents eat the honey. That doesn't happen in the movie. Samson went to the woman, and Samson threw a feast there, as was custom. This happens a little bit differently. So, the evil prince, who is the son of Billy Zane, he thinks that if he allows Samson to marry his servant girl, that Samson will be indebted to him, and then there'll be no the Hebrews will be very subservient to the Philistines, because the Philistines have been like taking all their harvests and stuff. So apparently it happens differently in the Bible. So Samson says, "Let me give you a riddle. If you can give me the answers during the 7 days of the feast, I will give you 30 fine robes. If not, you will give me 30 fine robes." So he has the riddle. Okay, yeah, the riddle seems to be the same in the Bible. So in the movie, it happens like the Philistine prince is taunting Samson. First he gives him a goblet of wine, and Samson's like, "I can't drink wine." He's like, "It's not wine," and then Samson drinks it and he spits it out. He's like, "You lie." He's like, "Ha ha ha ha, we're just having a joke." And it's like, wine has a smell, right? You'd be able to tell it was wine and not, I don't know, something not alcoholic. And then the prince of the Philistines says a riddle. Samson doesn't know the answer, and then all the Philistines laugh at him being stupid. Samson offers the riddle and says, "I'll give you until the morning, and we'll make a bet and it's about like 30 Philistine robes." And then, so the prince goes to the servant girl, the girlfriend there, and is like, I will kill you and take you for my own if you don't make him tell you the thing." So then she's like, "Oh, if you love me, you'll tell me the answer. There should be no secrets between lovers." And this will happen again in the movie, and will set up the movie's main message, which is that you should never tell the woman you love any of your secrets. That's right. That good old-fashioned biblical misogyny is alive and well in the movie. Glad they were faithful to that part of it. And then he goes to the Philistines. And then we get to the part where, yeah, okay. So this is kind of the same. So, anyway, because the princess, or not the princess, the servant girl, the fiancé basically, is able to get the answer for the prince of the Philistines, Samson now owes him 30 robes, and if not, he'll kill Samson. So Samson runs away for a while, and he drinks some water, and then we have the most overacting Philistine soldier who's like, "You drink my water, that's disgusting, you Hebrew lips shouldn't touch that." And then Samson keeps drinking. And then a fight ensues where Samson punches them all to death. Religion. He just punches them while three Hebrew slave girls are like cowering in fear. By the way, so this movie takes place in 1100 BCE. No one looks nearly dirty enough for this time period. Like, the costumes look like they've been freshly laundered. People's makeup is, like, has no dirt on it. It's just, it's not, it doesn't seem very, historically accurate as far as, like, just a basic, like, makeup touches like that. But we'll get to the bad makeup later, too. So anyway, he punches these people to death, and then he's like, oh no, I'm not supposed to touch the dead. And then, thankfully, we are saved a scene of him stripping 30 men's bodies naked so that he can get a sack of their clothes together and then drags it back. And then he drags it back to the prince, and the prince is like, you took too long, so I married your fiancée. By the way, you've murdered 30 of my men, so I'm gonna have to kill you. You know, them's the deal. So then he escapes, Samson, and then he finds a cave with some foxes. And then he has an idea to light some brush on fire and tie it to the foxes' tails so that the foxes dragging the fire run all through the Philistines' crops and burn them. So I guess this is the origin of Firefox. The Philistines should have gone with Chrome. I don't know. I don't know what joke to make on there. So anyway, so then the Philistine prince comes up and he's like, oh, you did that. And then he throws the fiancé and the fiancé's father off and kills them. And then Samson's like, no! Yeah. And then we get perhaps the funniest subtitle in this movie, which says, many years later. Not a specific amount of years, just many. And how does the movie show this progression of many years? Well, all of the actors look exactly the same, so there's no effort given to age anybody up, so many years might as well just be 2 months for all I know. Except for 2 characters. And this, it was so hard for me to not bust out laughing in the theater when I saw this, but Samson and Samson's little brother have, hands down, the most ridiculous fake beards I have seen in a theatrically released movie, maybe ever. They are horrible. They are like SNL sketch bad. They are like David A.R. White drove to Spirit Halloween and bought the cheapest fake beards and glued them on his actors bad. They're bad. Oh man. Oh man. Oh wait, I've skipped over another hilarious scene before that even happens. Okay, so yeah, before the beard thing, but I had to mention that because it's really hilarious. Samson hides away in a cave for a while, and then his tribe of Jews turned Samson in for leniency to the king and the prince of the Philistines. So they drag Samson away, and they have him in chains or ropes or something, and they're like gonna cut off his head, and the prince kills Rutger Hauer, the father, and so Samson gets mad, and he breaks his chains, like, "Rrr!" He's all like Lou Ferrigno. And then he just grabs the nearest thing that happens to be on the side of him, which is the infamous jackass's jawbone. And the following scene is a lot less genocide-y than it is in the Bible. But in the Bible, he takes this jackass's jawbone and he murders 1,000 men with it. Now, that's one sentence in the Bible. With it, he slaughtered 1,000 men, at least in this particular translation. So, it's one thing to write a sentence, and it's one thing for the very weird Christians who believe a literal interpretation of the Bible to believe that he slays 1,000 men. It's another to see this portrayed as an action set piece in a motion picture. So, he grabs this jawbone, which just happens to be laying there, you know, as if this is Maniac Mansion or Final Fantasy, where he just picks up a random thing, like, you found ass's jawbone. And the Philistine soldiers, at first they commit the great movie sin of trying to attack Samson one at a time. And then they start to converge on him, and he's just whacking away with his jawbone. He's just slaughtering, he's stabbing him in the stomach, he's whacking him across the face, and there's a little bit of blood. It doesn't really fly in like Passion of the Christ way, because PG-13, but it is spraying on his bronze chest, because during this fight he like rips off his tunic so he can be bare chest for, let's say, reasons. And then there's a very funny scene where it's part of this sequence where like a bunch of the soldiers just like dogpile tackle Samson. Like, now keep in mind, all of these soldiers have like a shield and a sword, so if they're close enough to be able to jump and pile on him, they could just stab him and kill him. But they don't do this. They just pile on him like he's the quarterback and he's fumbled the football. So, and then this movie has really funny bad ADR, so that they all like dogpile him, and there's like ADR line of "He is defeated." It's like, who would say that? Who would jump on a man and be like, "He is defeated"? And then there's a shot from in the middle of the tackle pile up at Samson. He's got his big like constipation face. And anyway, this actor who plays Samson, who I kept thinking was Tyler Lautner, because I think his name is also Tyler, and they have very similar faces. Look, I don't usually pick on the looks of actors, but this man's, like, they must have put, like, so much makeup on his face to make him look this way, and I don't know why, and... Oh, what's that, Carl? Oh, that's his actual face? So, they didn't put any makeup, his actual face looks like a bunch of punched mashed potatoes were molded to look like a pug dog, and then jagged metal shards were put in for cheekbones? Oh, yeah, so that is how he looks. Okay, so, but he does not have the face of a leading man, and, granted, look, I'm not a very attractive man. I'm not even a slightly attractive man. I go the Roger Rabbit way, and I get women with my sense of humor. But your leading actor has to at least have a face that's not circus ugly. Anyway, so it's a shot up. Taylor, not Lautner, is giving us his constipation face, and he's like, "Lord, give me the strength!" And then it's a slow motion shot where he like, "Rrr," and then all the Philistines are like flying off of him. He's like, "Rrr," and then he proceeds to kill a bunch more people with the jackass bone. And then the prince, who is there in person, is like, "Samson!" And even though Samson's back is to him, so why he announces himself when he could have stabbed him in the back, I don't know. He's like, "Samson!" And then Samson's all like, "Fuck you," and just whacks him across the face, and he gets a scar that he has for the rest of the movie. That's when it cuts to the many years later in the horribly, hilariously fake beards. So, at this point, Samson ends up like coming back down eventually and being with his people, and he becomes the judge of the tribe, and he's anointed with coconut oil or whatever they pour on him. And he wants to make a deal with Billy Zane to be like, "Hey, if you don't take as many of our crops so we don't starve, we'll not go to war and kill you." And Billy Zane's like, fuck you. So then, Samson's allowed to leave, and a kindly madam says he can lodge at the whorehouse, but lies about it being a whorehouse. And then another woman who has been the prince's girlfriend for this movie, and we haven't given her a name, or the movie hasn't given her a name. And since she is only one of two female leads in this movie, and the other one is not Delilah, then we know from the story it's Delilah. So Samson's all like, "Hey there, Delilah, what's it like in New York City?" I had to do it, sorry. So Delilah is basically playing a double agent, where she's attempting to, knowing that Samson gets a hard-on for Philistine girls, and there's a little bit of stuff at the beginning of the movie about Samson really liking the ladies, like for the first part of the movie where it's all kind of like playful and jovial with him and his brother. You kind of get a Tony Stark vibe off of him, that maybe he'd be one of these like beds the women, and then it's like the angry father comes in and he has to jump out a window or something. But it doesn't. The movie then gets like bad serious later. This movie isn't like Birdemic or The Room inept funny, but it's still so bad it's funny. So anyway, so Delilah's basically playing a double agent where She does gain sympathy for Samson, but she is still doing the bidding of the prince. I keep wanting to call him Samson instead of Samson. Maybe because I want to put a P in the name because these movies are as bad as piss at Pureflix. I don't know. Cheap one. I know. Cheap jab. So anyway, so Samson also falls for Delilah. And then the prince is sort of like, you better not be falling for him, tell me his secrets. So then Delilah plays evil later and is sort of like, if you're gonna love me, you should tell me your secrets. And then, so basically the same thing that caused his wife to, or his fiancée to die earlier, the same thing. So again, never tell women you love secrets, just keep them in the dark about everything. Christianity. So, I know, Old Testament, whatever. It's Christianity, they just believe in the sequel fan fiction. The New Testament is the Old Testament, with 50 Shades is to Twilight. So, anyway, so that's when he tells her, like, okay, so I have 3 vows and I've broken 2 of them. I've drank wine. First of all, you didn't break it. Somebody tricked you into drinking wine. So that's sort of like how certain parts of Christianity and Islam and other Abrahamic religions will believe that if a woman is raped, that she has unsullied herself or something, or she has sullied herself, rather. And it's, so it's like, no, if something was done to you against your will, you did not commit that act. It was committed against you, but no. So he basically says, yeah, that, touch the dead bodies. Okay, he did. He had to strip the dead bodies naked to steal the tunics. Glad that's not a scene. And the other one is like, I can't cut my hair. So, what happens? Delilah drugs him and then cuts his hair. Cuts his hair so that with the fake beard and then shorter hair, he kind of looks like Joel McHale for a few scenes. So anyway, yeah, after that point, he goes from being like, Lou Ferrigno, Hercules strong, to like, he like punches the shield, he's like, ah! And then he collapses. And then the prince comes and like takes a burnt sword and like gouges out his eyes. And so he's blind. So then him and his brother, Samson and his brother, are brought to the dungeon. Delilah feels sad because she's been paid off with silver, so they make a little Judas thing, part of Pureflix adding Christianity to an Old Testament story a little bit. And she's like, oh, I'll pay this silver to free you, my love, because the prince wasn't going to do this, and then he did. And then Samson's like, I'll forgive you if you free my brother instead. And then the brother's about to be freed, and Samson's like, get the Hebrews together and wage a war against the Philistines, get the soldiers. Now, when that happens and he tells his brother that, 1.5 feet away, holding the chain of his brother, is a guard in the cell. So I'm like, Samson, Ixnay on the land play. The soldier's right there. He will know your plan. Keep it on the DL. This movie's bad. But so funny bad. So, so yeah, then the prince kills Billy Zane so he can take the crown. Because, sure. And then he decides to parade the blinded, weakened Samson in front of the court to be like, hey, I've defeated this strong guy, so I must be stronger. Whee! He's also been keeping Samson alive because he thinks that by defeating him, the strength will flow to him. As if this is Highlander, and if he cuts off his head, he will get the quickening. No, I don't think Yahweh works like that. But anyway, so he's got Samson chained up, and of course, this being a Christian movie, Samson is whipped, because Christians love their martyrdom bondage scenes. So in as PG-13 Passion of the Christ as it can get, we see Samson just getting whipped. He's like, arr, arr. And Delilah's in the crowd like, oh, I'm sad. And the brother's watching like, And then finally, he's like whipped and he's all down, and the prince is like, ha 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 ha. And then Samson's like, please God, give me strength one more time. And then he stands up and he starts pushing these 2 columns he's tied to away. These are only 2 columns in a big palace, but apparently they are load-bearing columns. So it's able to move and then collapse the whole thing and like kill the prince and everyone. Though the prince waits a long time before ordering this, but eventually he orders his soldiers, like, kill him, kill that man, which could have happened a lot earlier. And it seems like the soldiers are very slow to get to Samson, because he's able to, like, and then push the columns away and collapse everything. And that's basically how that ends. And then there's like an anticlimactic closing montage where you see that the Hebrews have taken up swords and they're fighting back against the Philistines. And then there's a closing scene where it sets up David and Goliath, where you see David, you only see his hand with the slingshot, you never see him. And then it's like, following Samson, there would one day be another king of the Hebrews who would also fight and was strong. And the shot is set up of, in the front of the frame, you have the arm and the slingshot, and then over here, like in the back of the frame, is supposed to be Goliath on a stone. Now, Goliath is supposed to be a giant, so I think they raised the actor on a rock high up so that he would look taller. But the actor they got is maybe 6 feet tall, so I think it was like, let's get someone who is tall for a regular person, but by no means a giant, and then we'll put him on a rock, a little high up. Giant! And, I mean, it looks like they did kind of gloss over some of the more assholic parts of Samson, like the jawbone scene comes across more as like just for revenge and not genocide in the movie. So if they do make a King David sequel, I wonder how they're going to gloss over the whole fact that King David rapes Bathsheba. Yeah, big good guy hero of the Bible. And I share his name. He's a fucking rapist. Looks like they took like the basic story of Samson and they just embellished it. Took 5 writers, but they embellished it. But it's bad. But it's funny bad, because you have name actors who are giving bored performances. You have no-name actors who are giving over-the-top performances. You have no makeup or applying to costumes to make anything look regular. You have these hilarious fake beards. You have this weird, like, Christian stuff, like the 30 pieces of silver or the whipping, that's added into an Old Testament story that predates Christianity. And basically, you have a very goody-two-shoes evangelical studio that is about martyr complexes with the God's Not Dead movies, making an Old Testament story, but they also want to make it like a saleable action movie for the masses. So you have to have a guy this movie has a guy who's punching people to death and then murdering people with an ass's jawbone, but it still has to be like Christian and like wholesome. And unlike the Passion of the Christ, where a lot of Christians believe that Jesus was a real person, this actually happened, there's probably a decent subset of Christians who don't believe these Bible myths from the Old Testament literally true. I mean, some do, certainly, but others who will believe Jesus as a historical figure and everything is real will at least be like, all right, well, maybe a guy didn't live, maybe Jonah didn't live in a fish for 3 days, and maybe it doesn't rain for 30 days and dirty nights, and you can't get 2 of every animal to fuck on a boat. General people like that, who maybe think like, okay, Samson is clearly like a Superman, Hercules character that was common in myths like that before. So they're trying to make that, and they're trying to wedge in their Pureflix Christianity in it, and it doesn't quite match. I mean, there is a scene, I kind of like the content of it, where Billy Zane is talking to the prince, and the Philistines have their own god, and Billy Zane is basically saying, look, gods are just symbols, and we as leaders can use these symbols to control people, because, as their leader, I am this god, or you, when you become king, will be this god. So we can use this symbol to reflect on ourselves when things go well. And it's like, yeah, well, I mean, the modern-day Republican Party in the United States uses God to have their power. Because if they were really anything like the Christian leader they supposed to follow, then they wouldn't be supporting Donald Trump, a man who, even if you don't believe the stories about him raping and sexually assaulting people, is still someone who has paid off Playboy models and porn stars so that they don't tell the press about how he cheated on his wife. So you have a man who is being unfaithful to his wife with sex workers. And nothing against sex workers. I've known sex workers. They're very nice people. But Christians tend to look down upon that stuff, despite... I mean, Delilah is sometimes viewed as a prostitute by some people, but the Bible doesn't make that explicit. Same thing with Mary Magdalene in the New Testament. So, I don't know. So, I mean, they're clearly, these modern day Republicans clearly aren't Christian. They're just using the trappings of Christianity and basic lip service in order to engender themselves with a certain voting base to consolidate their power. Much like Billy Zane is in this movie, even though Billy Zane is supposed to be the non-Abrahamic figure in this movie. So, I kind of like that dialogue, though, even though the Pureflix people don't realize that about themselves, because they're also just using the trappings of Christianity to make a profit with their shitty movies and play off their audience's persecution complex, because if they knew anything about the subjects they were talking about, be it philosophy or the legal system, then they would make God's Not Dead 1 or 2, because those movies have no idea what an actual classroom or the field of philosophy or the legal system works like. Can't wait for God's Not Dead 3. Your church burned down, David Arroway. So, I think that's roughly all I need to say about Samson. It's, if you like watching so bad it's good movies and just having a good laugh at something where people are very much trying. Not Rutger Hauer and Billy Zane, they're not trying at all, they just want their paycheck. Poor Billy Zane, you were in Twin Peaks, man. But Rutger Hauer, you were in Blade Runner. But everyone else seems to be really trying their heart out. It's like, oh, we're going to make a new action movie. It's going to be for the Christians. The churches can watch it and see the pew-pew violence. And me, we're going to open it against Black Panther. And we're going to compete. Ooh, it's a Christian thing with the secular thing. No, but it's cute that they tried. It's adorable. Guy's weakness was a haircut. His arch nemesis should be like fucking Sweeney Todd. Got a superhero's